The hour of 4 o'clock having approached, time for the program to begin. Well, first of all, good afternoon and welcome to this Jim Hayes Symposium. I'm Kevin Riggs, one of countless journalism students who really feel fortunate to have spent time as a student learning from the great Professor Jim Hayes, and I have the bumps on the head to prove it. I'll be emceeing the program. Thank you all very much for attending this discussion on the future of the journalism profession. And a very big thank you is owed at this point to Sage Publishing for agreeing to be sponsor of the symposium. A reminder at this point that immediately following our discussion this afternoon, everyone here is invited to attend a reception that will be held outside on the patio. Today's gathering is intended to build upon the inaugural Jim Hayes Symposium that was held here on campus 2 years ago. Jim Hayes, of course, was a longtime journalism professor, chair of the journalism department, and founding director of the Brock Center for Agricultural Communications. He was a longtime reporter, editor, and writing coach for daily newspapers, and perhaps most of all, he was a treasured mentor to thousands of us who entered the journalism and communication professions. The Jim Hayes Symposium is meant to carry on his legacy of excellence in journalism, to foster a dialogue about ethics and responsible news development in a changing world, and to highlight Cal Poly journalism's commitment to prepare its students for leading roles in the field. And so, to set the stage, who better to speak than James Hayes, Jim Hayes' grandson, who by fortune and perhaps by genetics is currently a journalism student here at Cal Poly. James?
Hello, everyone. I would like to start off by thanking all of you for being here today on behalf of my family. I am incredibly honored to be speaking here today and incredibly humbled to see how many of you are here. I am a second-year journalism student here at Cal Poly. I am the crime reporter for Mustang News. I work at Pete's Coffee downtown. I procrastinate on my homework. I eat way too much pizza, and I don't sleep as much as I should. In short, I'm not perfect. My grandpa, however, he was known for pursuing perfection, and this sometimes ruthless pursuit revolved around a greater lesson: doing the right thing and practicing journalism with integrity. This lesson has a timeless quality to it. He positively impacted the lives of his students, enriched the careers of future colleagues, and he unknowingly influenced his own grandson. It's for that reason all of us are here today to take this legacy and apply it to what we know journalism to be today. Journalism is changing. Brand new technology is creating more ways for stories to be told. With these new methods of storytelling, new ethical questions for journalists challenge us every single day. Although these challenges are new, the solution is old, and it is one that is drilled into the minds of all of my grandfather's students. Do it right, do it accurately, and always do it with integrity. Thank you. I would like to welcome up Will Peischel to introduce the panelists.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming, whether the reason for that is insight on the industry or extra credit or both. My name is Will Peischel. If you're familiar with the programming at KCBR, I also go by DJ Space Dog. Refer to me as either. Gathered here today are 5 professionals from across the industry we study. They're here to discuss that industry and how to overcome the myriad challenges that accompany our time. I'm here to introduce them. The first panelist is National Geographic Editor-in-Chief, Susan Goldberg. If you weren't here for the last hour, here's just a quick little reminder. Goldberg is the 10th editor of National Geographic and the first woman editor-in-chief since the publication began in 1888. With Goldberg at the helm since 2014, the magazine won 2 National Magazine Awards and the George Polk Award for Magazine Reporting. In 2015, Exceptional Women in Publishing awarded Goldberg its esteemed Exceptional Women in Publishing Award. It goes without saying, we're happy to have you here. Next is Chris Hendricks, the Corporate Vice President of Products, Marketing, and Innovation with the McClatchy Company, which owns a number of major newspapers across the country. His career began at one of those newspapers, the Fresno Bee. With Hendricks, Hendricks was an advertising director and marketing director. After the Bee, Hendricks stepped on to McClatchy. Hendricks now stands at the forefront of the dialogue that's trying to answer the million-dollar question in our industry, which is how do we create a viable business model in media today? Our third panelist today is Bert Herman, a journalist turned entrepreneur who co-founded Storify, which users use to aggregate information on social media into a single feed when covering stories on the fly. Now Herman works to bridge the worlds of technology and journalism with his organization Hacks Hackers, which creates dialogues between experts in those fields. As a journalist, Herman worked for Associated Press at a number of foreign correspondent posts. He covered the Iraq War while posted in Uzbekistan and reported from Moscow on Eastern Europe in the fallout of the attacks on September 11th. Our next panelist is an alumni from Cal Poly's journalism program, our very own David Curley. He learned the tools of the trade in Building 26. He applied those skills during an internship his senior year at Cal Poly, which landed him a job at a television station in a town called Santa Maria. Today, Curley is a familiar face at ABC, where he regularly reports for programming like Good Morning America, Nightline, and World News Tonight. From his post at ABC, he's reported from Iraq to the People's Republic of China to Florida. Our final panelist is Andrew Paley, a lead honcho at Narrative Science. Narrative Science is a startup notable for its creation of Quill, a program that analyzes raw data and automatically converts that data into copy. He's a musician, he's young, he also has a master's degree from the Medill School of Journalism in Northwestern. Our moderator today is Pete King, a California-based correspondent for the LA Times. Peter reports from all corners of the state, exploring its people, culture, past and politics, as well as the pressing issues of today. His 35-year career in newspapers, included stints at the Telegram Tribune, Fresno Bee, Associated Press, and the San Francisco Examiner. Now, please give our panelists a warm welcome and thanks.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Well, after that debut, what can go wrong, right? So I'm the moderator, and I believe in moderation in all things, including moderating. So the idea is to have a conversation today that among you all, and not me ask a bunch of questions and you give a bunch of answers and whatnot. And the idea, when these things really work, is to push people out of their comfort zones just a bit and maybe come out with some new thinking. I'd like to begin with just to sort of set a tone with one of my favorite passages of poetry, which is sort of unusual for a J-School event and a co-sponsored College of Engineering event. It's The Hollow Men, from The Hollow Men by T.S. Eliot. And as he reaches his conclusion of a long poem, between the idea and the reality, between the motion and the act, falls the shadow. Between the conception and the creation, between the emotion and the response, falls the shadow. Between the desire and the spasm, between the potency and the existence, between the essence and the descent, falls the shadow. So, noodling around with his construction as it might apply to today's conversation, we are in a shadowland in journalism, as some of the introductory speakers referenced. And we're doing to ourselves what good journalism has always done. The old saying from when I was a pup, you know, the role of journalism is to cast light into dark places, into the shadows. So, with all due Apologies, Mr. Elliott, wherever you may be. So between the departure, the oh my God, the train is leaving the station and I got to get on it, to the destination, where are we going? Why are we going there? What's going to happen when we get there? Falls the shadow. Between the innovation, all these wonderful things that you just saw in the last hour, between the innovation and the monetization, how we can pay for it, falls the shadow. Between the quest for clicks, for tweets, retweets, likes, followers, eyeballs, and the need, the duty, the honor, the beauty of doing journalism that counts, journalism that sticks, falls the shadow. This is a conversation is clear that is going on in every newsroom, every corporate boardroom, every journalism school in the country, and has been going on for, I'd say, a good 15 years or so. To quote an old friend of mine, this is not rocket science. This is harder than rocket science, and it's a moving target. And so with that, we might as well get started. Just a few things we're going to take at 5 o'clock, 45 minutes. We're going to take a few questions from the audience. We want to tilt it towards students. Kevin Riggs will be around with a mic. Then we'll go back into some more conversation. And then I want to end with a sort of a rapid round with all the panelists giving their last thoughts, and we'll wrap it up. So we've got some time, but I think it's going to go fairly quickly. So to begin, Mr. Hendricks. Well, you're close. You know, out of sight, out of mind. You could have sat in the other chair. You're wrestling with a couple questions to get us started. You've talked about a 20% of your revenue coming.
Actually, it's 30.
30% of your revenue, so it's coming from digital world. I'm wondering if your investment reflects that. Is it 30% of your overall budget, or are you taking from the print world to feed the digital world?
That's a very complex and good question. We at McClatchy are deliberately managing down the print business in a manner that allows us to take cash from that business and reinvest it in ourselves, whether it be investments external to the company. This microphone's horrible. Investments to the company, meaning operations, investments in small businesses and startups. We are deliberately taking the money across and investing in disproportionately into the digital business, because that's where we know the business is headed. We're not ending the print business. It's still a very profitable business, and it allows us to invest in the future. But we are not simply giving up on it. It's a delicate balance, because you don't want to bend the curve, it's called. You don't want to bend it in a way that you suddenly are out of business or have to file for bankruptcy and those kind of things. So we are deliberately doing it. We are investing heavily in video. This year we have expanded it tremendously to where we are a traditional newspaper company, and we are now doing episodic video series. There's many series, you can go out and see them. Some of them are award-winning series because we know that video is part of our future also. We're investing in social media, training our folks about social media and how to actually engage with the audiences, which is something that you would think in the history of our businesses that we really did understand our audiences, but we didn't. We're investing in that. How do we do design thinking? How do we train everybody to understand that getting closer to our customers is a good thing, not a bad thing?
So the video, are we on?
I can hear you.
There you go. So I'm an old goat. Tell me how the videos are going to make you money.
Right now, wow. Okay, so right now it's primarily the traditional type of a model, which is pre-rolls, post-rolls. It's very, very nascent, and many people are trying to figure out the business model of it first, instead of figuring out how do you do short form in digital format, not just short form the way it was done in traditional media, traditional television, those kind of things. So our episodic series, for example, are 9 to 10 minutes, because people don't have the attention span to sit and watch 30 and 45-minute shows, and that's not our area of expertise, so we're doing short form. And then we're doing the traditional, 15-second, 5-second advertisements in front of it, or post-roll too. I don't believe that ultimately, the display type of model, which that is the intrusive display model, is a long-term model. It's really, how do you train advertising just as you're training your folks who are creating content to understand the needs of the user, the reader, the viewer in a digital world. And I think no one has figured that out, because all we do right now is see, if you go on YouTube, you see lots of post-roll, you see lots of pre-roll, you see lots of interruptive type of advertising. You don't see something that's new and different. How do you storytell advertising in this new digital world? It's a real puzzle. It's a real puzzle. You see it right now when you go to a newspaper or any kind of website in general, and you get all these intrusive ads coming at you that are display format ads. That's a format that is traditional. Okay, that is not, I don't believe, and I hope that is not where digital advertising ends up, whether it's in the video side or whether it's in the display side.
You're an optimist in this category, and you've worked on both sides of the trench, if you will, or the common area between the two. Take a squint. Where is the train going? Yes.
Yeah, it's always, the future of technology is very bright if we can all figure out the projectors and microphones. Should I just use that? Yeah. Hello? Hello, yes, there we go. Hi, yes, okay, I'm optimistic now that you can hear me. Yeah, I think, I mean, if you look at journalism right now, there's more of an audience than ever for the work that people are doing. I mean, newspapers previously could only reach the distance where their trucks could throw something onto your doorstep, whereas now, large papers like the New York Times, Washington Post, obviously places like National Geographic, as we just heard, are having amazing, huge reach across the world and impacting people in many ways. And I really do think we've just barely begun the evolution of where this is going. We have just barely begun to understand what social media really means. It's not just about using Facebook and Twitter and these sorts of things. It's really the fact that now we have the internet, which is this medium that allows people to communicate directly across the world instantly at no cost. And how does that influence how reporters can get stories, how reporters distribute stories, what happens before the story where you talk with people about what you're working on, and then after the story, how people can follow up and potentially help you make your story better by contributing more information. I think really it's only about 20 years or so since the web became a thing. I mean, that is so early in all of this. This is like, right after Gutenberg invented the printing press. Think about what technology was like then and how far things have come with print, and we've just barely begun the start of digital technology.
But I asked this of the panel at large. Having lived through those 20 years that you're talking about, I was actually the web editor for 1 month at the LA Times. With the duration ought to tell you something. In any newsroom, in any of the McClatchy newsrooms, in the ABC, Susan, you've had a long roll through papers. The sense is, there was the internet, there was the printing press, but for us monks who were scribing out the things by hand for centuries, the resources went to the new baubles, the new things, before the idea of what those new things were going to do, how we're going to monetize them, how we're going to make this a sustainable business and a noble product. It went that way first. I'm just wondering, did we go in the wrong direction in terms of what led the movement? Maybe you got a thought, Dave.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here again with a symposium named after Jim Hayes and to be led by one of his great disciples. And I apologize for the cold. It is a radical change. I talked a little bit about this at the last symposium, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record. I'm not a business person. I don't decide how we do things. I'm a journalist. I'm a storyteller. I go find stories and tell them. And to me, it doesn't really matter how ABC News decides to distribute that. It can be through a station and their antenna. It can be a satellite that you get. It can be over your phone. It can be over Facebook. That's all distribution. And the real question, James, is not $1 million question. It is a multi-billion dollar question of how we monetize this, because we've been giving this product away for free. It doesn't cost anything because people are getting out on the internet, and we are owned by the Disney Corporation, which wants ABC and ABC News to make money. So the question is, how do we use this technology to continue to tell our stories and figure out a way that when you click on it on your phone, we get a penny or a nickel or whatever? And I've been waiting for some really smart people for the last 15 years to figure that out. And nobody has yet. And we're all in the same boat, and we're all doing the same thing. We're throwing it up there on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and hoping that people will come to us and see our product. I will tell you, though, 10 years ago, I had a executive at ABC News tell me that World News Tonight was a dinosaur. The evening newscasts were going away. And in the last 10 years, the audience has grown. 8 million people starting an hour ago on the East Coast, are watching World News Tonight this evening. Digital is huge for us. We're spending a lot of effort to try and find that path, but we are in the shadows. We don't know where it's going to lead us to, but everybody wants to be in the space because at some point somebody's going to figure it out, and we're all going to follow. I tell you who's doing great right now is Facebook. You mentioned, just like us, Facebook is a huge way that we distribute a lot of our content. I don't know the arrangements. I'm not sure that we share in any of the revenue that Facebook gets from their ads when somebody views ABC product. I'm not the business person. But at some point, people have been aggregating our product. We need a penny, we need a nickel, we need a dime.
And I don't necessarily think that that's true. I think what we do as a company, our mission is about journalism, public service journalism first, and lots more journalism, lower J journalism in our marketplace. We believe that that's good for democracy. So what is it that's necessarily going to support that activity? And I don't want to fall into the trap that it has to be advertising related. It may be another business that we have to go into that throws off cash that allows us to make the decision to support journalism. So we meaning McClatchy, have invested in, yes, we're going to chase the advertising part of the business, but we're going to chase other businesses too, whether it's through smart investments in other businesses that are related, or in some cases not related, and also businesses that are competitive with other outlets in our markets. And that's the digital services agency business, where we will be a marketing agency on behalf of customers and sell them services that aren't necessarily related to somebody reading a story on our site, but they help them be successful in their businesses. And we make profit off of that. And if we are true to our mission, we will return that profit not only to ourselves, but to journalism and to our investors. And that's a smart bet, is to go ahead and say, you know, let's step back and say, I don't think necessarily if we put all of our eggs in the display advertising bucket, we will be successful. It's a low margin, commodity-based business, because never before in our journalism's history, at least in modern history, has the demand for what we produce in our newsrooms been so high. But that means that there's so much of it that it's all over the place. And it's become sort of a commodity game of chasing eyeballs and advertising dollars. So if you back out and then say, well, what are those businesses that make smart bets? You hope, as you say, over time, some of those will pay off handsomely, or some of them will become the new model, whatever that model may be. So you're right. We're all in the shadows trying to figure this out and playing it wide and trying to play it smart.
I would never say that we're in the shadows. I actually think exciting time to be in the journalism business. People ask me all the time, what is the best thing and the worst thing about your job? And the thing is it's the same thing. It's just different sides of that coin. So the best thing is the ability that we have now to reach larger and more diverse audiences than we ever could have reached in print, ever.
Well, I don't disagree with you on the
All right,
journalism
so
side. I disagree
then,
with you on the business
but
side.
so on the business side, the challenge is how do we monetize that? But I do think that we have seen some real progress in the last few years with partnerships that you know, people have, and we have partnerships with you know, with folks all the time. I wouldn't call it an advertising model, but really a partnership model. And also, we're seeing the resurgence of subscription, you know, with paywalls that are actually working all over the place. And at newspapers, increasingly, subscriptions are paying not just for the digital product, but also the print product. So it does seem like there is a growing realization on the part of the public that you can't get all this great stuff for free. And in fact, I'm sure every publisher regrets the first day they gave away anything for free in 1995, believing that the same model that worked in print would work online. And so we have spent now the last pretty much 20 years trying to figure out how to get back to where we should have been, which is we never should have given away in the first place.
I don't believe in the original sin that everybody always brings up, that if we had done it then, we couldn't have done it then. There was no infrastructure to do it then. There wasn't any paid platform at the time. So it can't be an original sin if it wasn't capable. There was no capability to do it.
Some people did it then. Wall Street Journal didn't give it away to the Wall Street Journal either I don't know for sure, but they very quickly went to a paid model, and that seems to have been a smart model. So look, I'm not talking about looking back and casting stones. I just think at this point it isn't free, and because it's expensive to collect all that good information. So we've got to figure out ways that it gets paid for, either by users or by sponsors, and that seems reasonable to me.
Susan, with you just for 1 second. You said something in your remarks that caught my ear, many things, and it was a spectacular performance or delivery, and you know, thank you for that. But you mentioned, well, you're going where the millennials are with all their platforms and all the things that, you know, that they're communicating with today. Strategically, is it a matter of going where they are so they become hooked on your product so that they come back to your magazine? Or is it a matter of taking your magazine there to live in the future?
I don't think it's realistic to think that people who are in their 20s are going to be heavy print subscribers. I just don't think that's realistic, which is not to say I don't think print is dead. People do read books. The book business is doing, in fact, really pretty well. And we are trying to grow our print subscriptions and circulation, and we're going to be very aggressive about it. But looking forward, you know, we certainly agree it is a digital future, and so I really think it's about getting these young readers and users essentially hooked on our wonderful content because it speaks to them and it matters to them, and then we'll figure out how to get them to pay for it. But you got to play first. You got to play. You can't just go, oh no, we're not going to go there because this business model is problematic, and just wait for somebody to figure it out. I don't think that that's a reasonable position.
At what cost to your core product, to your
Well, you know, you also set up this construct that, you know, we have to take money from our print and move it to digital. I don't think it's quite that simple because, in fact, what we're doing is moving content across all of these platforms all the time. So we'll go, you know, shoot a story right now. In fact, we've got a terrific story that'll be on our site on, I think, Monday, and it's Life After ISIS, and we've shot this amazing story in Iraq. Well, that would be very expensive for us to do if only digital were paying the bills, and it probably wouldn't make sense. But we will be able to repurpose that across all of our platforms, including our print platform. So then, you know, then the costs start making sense. So it's hard to create, these are not hard walls. These are very porous walls, and the content flows back and forth, which is, it's a little hard to figure out your P&L, I will have to admit, but it isn't just an either-or situation.
We should bring our fifth panelist in. He sat at the far end, being a clever person that he is. You wrote or on your Quill website, I think on the mission statement, it says that powered by artificial intelligence, Quill is our advanced natural language generation (ANG) or NGL (NLG) platform for enterprise organizations that goes beyond reporting the numbers. It creates perfectly written, meaningful narratives for any intended audience. To me, that sounds like God. Can you explain what that sentence?
What we're driving at is that Quill can consume any structured data in the world and tell the stories captured in it, provided a human being comes in and explains how to understand that data ahead of time. So the good news for us is that the world is increasingly becoming structured data in a number of industries in a variety of ways. And I think that there's a number of opportunities for journalism to explore playing with data using our platform and a number of others. I don't think there are places where this platform doesn't work. If there's unstructured data, or in fact, all of the stories in the world that are not really represented in data in the ways that computers can pass around, as it currently stands anyway, are outside the scope of our platform. So we are developing a knowledge system. You can teach it. You build effectively what is an ontology within it. You tell it what you want to know about. You tell it where to find data related to that and how to understand that data. And then you ask it questions effectively. You tell it what you want to know. And that is how we build our stories, and that is how we train our system, and that is sort of a flyby of how our system works. So I recognize I'm the oddball on this particular panel, and I hope I can bring a little bit of a perspective about the importance of data, and I think about new ways to think about storytelling that in no way replace journalism. I care a lot about journalism. I've been a news junkie since I was 7. I would get up in the morning and watch the early morning news. I have 2 degrees in journalism and a lot of friends who work in the field. So this is not an attempt to replace any component, any of the human level journalism. Nothing you saw in the last hour and a half in that presentation is something that we're looking to replace in any way. I think that there's a real opportunity here, though, to take advantage of a world increasingly captured in data that, in fact, we're kind of drowning in, and look at ways to use that information to tell stories that are really sitting right in front of us. There are a whole bunch of dots already on the table, and trying to figure out how to connect them, I think, is a new era for journalism.
Structured data, sports scores, structured data, and to have human beings dealing with that to tell a short story or a recap, you don't necessarily need that today. And I think we're seeing that show up already in a lot of places where you wouldn't even know that that's the case. You'd be surprised if I gave you some of the brands. But it's smart because it takes the body, the human element, in the more expensive side of the business down in cost, and then you can reinvest that money elsewhere into some of the stuff we saw up here. And that's smart, and we welcome that change.
What happens if there's a ball? Get it? Like if there's a baseball game and everything's sort of going according to plan, but what happens if something really, really unexpected happens? That is there. I take it that's when you need the human intervention.
Well, it depends on what you mean by unexpected. So if it's unexpected in the sense that it is outside the scope of the data, if a game was happening and there was an earthquake in the middle of the game and the game stopped,
I was here when that happened.
that would, there you go, perfect. So I didn't mean it to relate it to your experience quite so perfectly, but that is something, of course, that absent access to that information, our system would not be able to pull in and incorporate. Unexpected in terms of anything from bad data or anomalies, we work through in what we do, in the way we design the system, ways to alert people to that, to call out anomalies in the information that is available to the system, such that it's an open question that someone else can answer, or they're able to dig into it and realize that the data was bad, something delivered to the system was not what was expected.
I just think it's really interesting. I just always wonder what happens when something crazy happens.
So we spend a lot of time thinking about that. Yeah, absolutely.
Susan, explain why it's cool.
I don't know if in your career you had to do like those reports when companies report their earnings. Okay, there's a really good example of something that could, frankly, a machine could do it better than a lot of people. I mean, just the basic first, not the interpretive work, the basic financial report of, they made this much money the last quarter, the analysts had expected them to make this much money, and this is what's happened to the stock price. Boom, you're done. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm probably going to get hate mail here, but I really don't see anything wrong with that. What I do think then is then you need some people to look at those kinds of stories to talk about what it means and to put it in that broader perspective. That can't be replaced. But the number crunch and put a sentence around that number crunch, yeah, I think you could do that.
It's cool. It just out. This is the saying in computer science, right? So the stories are only good as the data that they get. So we still need to make sure that companies, if it's financial earnings, like, are they actually accurately reporting their earnings, or are they fudging the numbers? And that's going to take somebody digging into this and the human side of it too. But I totally agree that, yeah, I was telling Andrew, actually, in my first job at AP in Detroit, I would get a stack of sports box scores and just have to write like 20 stories about football games or basketball games that I never went to, just based on the box scores. And that's what you had to do if you were the junior newsman in the AP bureau. So I would have gladly handed that off to a robot to be able to actually do real reporting out on the streets that the computer couldn't do.
Ronald Reagan used to do that too. Anybody remembers that story? Reagan used to call games from box scores that were over the teletype. I think I already get this stuff. I think I get notifications on my phone from all the people that notify me. That's just a headline, a blurb, or whatever. I have the advantage, I guess, of every night I compete with 2 or 4 other correspondents on a story. And I get to see real time every night if somebody wrote a story better than I did or told a story better than I did. And that's the factor that I think we can't, a computer's not going to be able to do that, I don't think. Maybe. That's the juice. That's the thing that makes journalism kind of special, is when you can actually tell that story that evokes a piece of emotion. All of a sudden the light bulb goes off in your head. To me, that's what this is all about. Every day, day in and day out, is to tell you something that's going to help you live your life better. And to compete, I'd love to compete against a computer, actually. I'd like to see how we do.
When I had to do the box scores for AP, we were in the Fox Plaza building in San Francisco, and UPI, we were on the 9th floor, and UPI was on the 11th floor. So I became friends. He was another Fresno Bee alumnus like myself, and we divided up the games. UPI would do 3 games and give me those, and I would do the other 3 games, and the Cali and give them theirs. That was how we got around that, but at least cut it in half. There was an editor at the New York Times, at the LA Times, named Terry Schwadron, who went on to the New York Times to be their innovation editor. And he had the same idea. We do bank closing stories every holiday, what's open, what's closed stories. And so he wrote out this form, and you were just supposed to fill in the box as a reporter. And it led to a creativity revolution. So all of a sudden, the bank story closure stories were, and the weekend closure stories, reporters were doing anything they could to come up with an angle that wouldn't force them into the box that the human computer, Terry Schwadron, was trying to put them in. And one last story on that take, and I can see my dinosaur scales coming out, but there's a famous story in The Kingdom and the Power, the Gay Talese book on the New York Times, circa the 1960s. David Halberstam was given an annual story. It was the garbage in the street stories, which most savvy reporters kicked off. They dispensed with in an hour, in 12 paragraphs, because it made the wife of the publisher happy. Well, he had just come back from Moscow, and this was an insult to give this man this story. And he turned it into a 5-part series that won national awards on the true life of garbage in New York City, where it comes from, where it goes, who makes money off it, et cetera, et cetera. Only to say that there is an energy in a newsroom that is sort of a part of our unique thing. It's something beyond data, something beyond content. It's a human endeavor done with a lot of passionate people, and to get the panel's reaction. We brag on ourselves at my newspaper all the time. We win this award or that award. But let's be honest, we've got 400 journalists at the LA Times. We used to have 1,200. And, you know, some of them were slackers like me, but most of them were real hardworking folk. And I don't know how we can pretend that we are still delivering what we did before. And and in that period of decline, a lot of the resources have gone to the future that we're trying to figure out what the future is.
I mean, really, what is your alternative? To not go to the future? I totally don't understand that mindset at all. And I see it from some people in my own newsroom, although thankfully not too many, because I am so frustrated with this conversation. We've been having it for 20 years, and you know, there's been this troglodyte view that, oh no, you can't go there, you don't want to look ahead, you can't go to the future. And I think it is so unhelpful and has not served our industry well. And you know, a lot of newsrooms are smaller. I come out of the newspaper business. It breaks my heart when I see what has happened in some of the newsrooms where I've worked too. But this is the world that we're living in. And so I think that instead of mourning that past, what I would rather do is put my energy and put my staff's energy into figuring out how are we going to reach this next generation? How are we going to tell stories in the future? I'm tired of mourning that past. We got to move on.
I talked to a couple students earlier today, and this business has been changing since the day I got in it, and you evolve with it, or you get out of it, and same thing. I don't know what the number was of people we had at ABC News when I got there 13 years ago, but it's a fraction of that. We tell stories differently. We have a different amount of time for our stories, and you learn to adapt and move on. The bigger question is this thing that we started with is where do we go next and where does it go? To me, still, the bottom line is it's about shining that light, finding that piece of information and sharing it. And we're going to share it wider and faster, and the technology is going to help us do all those things. But all of our companies, as I mentioned earlier, still need to figure out a way to get that penny or nickel.
Industry is very vibrant. I mean, you can only look at the reporting in the last week or so by the New York Times and by the Washington Post on the election, on the national election that we're having. And these are, you know, two of the finest newspapers and also digital purveyors of the news in the country, and they have made a major difference by doing investigative reporting, as they should be, on the most important thing going on in our country right now. And you know, those stories were reported, and then they were distributed across all of these new means. And I would say that those new means made them even more powerful than they would have been otherwise.
That there's a tendency to look at this business as the good old days. From 1960 to, let's call it 2010, this business, the news business, had it really good. We, both broadcast television and the newspapers, we were the internet. We had everything in there. We had advertising, we had entertainment, we had sports, you name it, we had it, and it blew up. But if you go back to the history of the newspapers, go all the way back to the time in the late 1800s, where in Sacramento, our newspaper predates electricity there. So you go back then and you look at the newspapers and you say, well, where's the classified section, which was the big producer of money for us in the 60s through 2010? It didn't exist. It did not exist. So the business has evolved, but we have this tendency to look at that period, 1960 to 2010, as, oh my God, everything was the same since history, time immortal, and that's not true. So we have evolved, and we're always, and the thing I always say to the question is not really what happens to journalism. Journalism has made it through radio and print. Journalism has made it through the advent of television. Journalism has made it through the advent of cable, through the internet. So it's really, what are you doing about journalism, not what are you doing about anything else but that. And that's what, if you focus on that, you get creative and innovative about ways to preserve it. And it's kind of the same vein I said earlier. It really is about that.
Susan was saying, I mean, and this reporting that has been done by the New York Times and the Washington Post in the past week or so, I mean, I've seen people on my social media feed saying, I'm subscribing to the Washington Post because I like what they're doing. I'm subscribing to the New York Times. I'm proud to pay for this. And I think that's this subscription model and people paying for a service, I think, is more of the direction where we're going. I don't think it's necessarily about getting a a penny or a nickel for every click on content, because information is kind of a commodity now in the age of the internet, right? If something's online and public, everybody can see it, and it spreads and people share it in different ways, and then you've lost control of it. It's not your information anymore. You can't hold a monopoly on information like you could, again, when you were the one newspaper in the town and the only way people learned about the world. So I think instead, journalists should be thinking more about this service pitch to their community. We are providing this valuable service. You don't have the time to go to your local city council meeting. You don't have the time to dig through the budget. You're not going to go and find all these reports of what people have done in the past and all that. We're doing this for you to make sure that democracy functions, that we are performing this essential watchdog function, and that's what you're paying for, not paying to read a certain article or click on a photo.
In terms of the advertising thing, I mean, again, admittedly, I know much less than other people on the panel about this particular component of how we look at paying for journalism going forward. But it does strike me that at some point when the internet came on the scene and newspapers were having to make the hard decisions to give their content out for a variety of reasons, whether they be technical hurdles or whether they be the danger of losing readership to the person one click over who's giving that content away for free. There were a whole bunch of decisions there. I think if you look at what's happened over the last 5 to 10 years, other platforms have come into market and been vanguards for people getting used to the idea of relatively low dollar amount subscriptions for digital content, right? So there was a whole bunch of piracy around music and television and film for a period of time, and people then introduced, you got Spotify, and we have Netflix, and we have people willing to pay $5 and $10 a month on their credit card in a way that they just sort of set it and forget it, that I think there's an opportunity now for journalism to sort of ride in that wake a little bit, and people are now used to the idea they slapped on their credit card and $4.99 falls on their credit card every month, and I do really think there is an opportunity here for major publications to take advantage of the fact that I think part of the zeitgeist is we're a little bit more comfortable with that in a way that we weren't 10 or 15 years ago.
Can I just add one thing? What's interesting, though, is for us, and from Susan's talk, and I'm sure it's the same for McClatchy, is we're telling stories completely differently digitally than we are on broadcast. So I'm kind of curious how it evolves. We are producing things for the phone right now in a different way than we produce something for the television broadcast. And we're producing something different for the desktop than we are for the broadcast. And I don't know if there's going to be a shift in the consumption and how people are getting the information that they want, but it's a pretty interesting time. We don't believe, is the message I've heard, that just taking our broadcast and putting it on your phone is something that you want. And so we're now tailoring it completely differently, which actually requires additional bodies and a lot of different work. So my editorial work and a lot of what I do personally goes on a broadcast. And there are members on my team who then create that in a different version to go out digitally. So it's still storytelling. It's a different kind of storytelling. And I don't know where that goes in another 5 years.
So we are, taking our content and doing it differently across different platforms. And then we've got our social media team who's putting out that content, and they're doing it in different ways depending on whether they're pushing that story out on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or Snapchat. So, you're taking this original thing, you're redoing it, and then you're pushing it out also in different ways to reach these different audiences. And, is it all going to be successful? Certainly not. Certainly not. But we've got to just keep trying these different things to see how we can make connections so readers will find us indispensable. Readers and viewers will find us indispensable.
Respectful of them. Someone is willing to invest their time with you. And it used to be that we could just put it on the paper and that was fine. That was the context. Or throw it on the traditional television station. It was fine. But today, people are stretched for time, and that's what we're competing with everything else. We compete with Uber. We compete with Netflix. It's all about time. And if you're mindful of that moment, can figure out that trap of being mindful, respectful of the moment that people are investing in you, I think there's a model there over the long time. And you're right. We're going to fail in lots of different places. We're going to abandon things, but we're trying to figure that out.
What I also think is so interesting. Now we have so many more tools to evaluate success. So it used to be when I started out in newspapers, you know, the way I would go into coffee shops or anywhere where people were reading a newspaper, and I would watch furiously while people were reading the paper. Like, were they getting to the jump? Did they read the front page and throw away the sports, or did they just look at the sports and throw away the front page? That was sort of how I got my information about how people were using our product. Not really great. So now, though, I can find out exactly when we post something, where did they stop reading it? And you can take that and you can work on your stories to make them better and more attractive to readers, to retain those readers. It isn't dumbing it down, it's making it better content for what they actually want.
One of the anecdotes. Went into Omniture, we have Adobe Analytics, and one time I was looking at 500-word stories and above. And the amount of time that someone spends at 500 words and above and 1,000-word story and above is exactly the same. So why are you writing 1,000-word stories? You know, it's a question. It's just that's the data you can get today. And it doesn't necessarily say don't write 1,000-word stories, but you got to wonder and say, okay, what stories are the ones that we want to write that are that long, not just write to write.
It's funny. I went away from journalism for about 6 years. I worked for the University of California doing communications. And it was at a board meeting like we're going to have tomorrow morning, and I came back, and a lot of the student editors were giving their presentations, and they were talking about their GoPro cameras and this and that new portal that's come up, and on, and they're very excited. And having come from that old school journalism background, you know, with having lived through the golden era where they actually made us fly first class, if you can believe that, if the trip was over, it struck me what the old geezers in the newsroom who have been resistant will say about going on to Twitter or this. We've got to go on social media. We've got to do this. And the editors are making them do it. What the students were saying was, we get to. And there was this enthusiasm to do, as Susan's saying, let's try everything and see where we connect and see where it goes. And it was frankly, you know, you never make a personal decision for one reason, you make it for several. But it was one reason that sort of drove me back to this new thing in newspapers to see how it's going to play out. And we're going to pivot the conversation in a minute. I'm just curious how many of people in the audience are students. It looks like about half. Yeah. So we're going to start thinking of your questions. We're going to take about maybe 10 or 15 minutes of questions. I want to tilt it towards students. Sorry, non-students, but and then maybe as we have discussed the brave new world and where things are going and the things that we haven't figured out yet but need to figure out. And I do have a question about how much urgency is attached to the search for those answers. How long do we have to keep looking around? But before we get there, I want to get to some questions. Then I want to turn the conversation a little bit into what these students out here ought to be thinking about. Because some of this stuff, and I talked to a dozen, you know, and they're, with me, it was television. I was in the Fresno Bee newsroom when George Gruner, the managing editor, decided to put TVs up in the newsroom, which was a revolution at the time because he was sure they were going to kill us. It didn't happen. I mean, it made a dent, but so long way around it. We're going to break for some questions. We're going to come back and we're going to try to, and maybe you can help us begin, but we're going to come back and talk about the future in terms of the context of your lives and your careers. And where you're trying to get going. So with that, I will surrender my mic to Kevin Riggs, and he will walk the room looking for students that have a question for the panel.
Wandering the room. All right, so you heard Pete say we want to spend the next 15 minutes or so hearing, in particular from students, what questions might you have, what questions have been sparked by this discussion, this panel discussion here today. And we're going to go ahead and hear the answers from the panelists. Who wants to go first? I need a volunteer. Let's step back here. Hi there.
Beyond just social media, looking at new technology platforms, are there any that you've begun to implement or see will be valuable for the future of journalism?
Well, from the newspaper perspective, it's not it's a new. Not a new platform, but it's new to our environment, which is the push to video, to retraining growing our muscles in that area so that we can tell stories with video. And it has been fun, it's been hard, but we're starting to really see the fruits of really investing in it, not just saying, okay, we're going to give you a camera, go do this. Taking millions of dollars and investing and going outside and hiring talent that really understands video, bringing them in, not just talent from traditional video, but talent from digital native video. Bring that talent into our environment and saying, help us figure this out. But here are the assets we have, and let's merge the two and figure out what we can do to make this a true business line for us. So that to us is new. It's exciting to do that and play with that. And second, to turn it over to others, is to play with, again, to play with the natural language processing, to play with artificial intelligence. We're starting to play in that field to reduce some of the effort and some of the commodity style and data-driven style news that we have on our, then we can take those resources elsewhere.
As the one broadcaster on the panel, I'd love to have more people doing video. We love the video. Directly to your question, and I think it, from your presentations, Susan, looked to be the same. Facebook has proven to be a amazing reach for us to touch our audience. We use every other platform as well. We have a social desk that is looking for what's coming in and sending stuff out. We use Twitter, we use Instagram, we do it all. Facebook has reached a lot of people and figured some things out that is really beneficial to it at this point. Whether that changes in the next 2 years, I have no idea, but that's kind of the state of play for us and my understanding of it at this point.
A lot more video. You know, just as National Geographic was known for its still photography in the last century, we want to be known for videography in this coming century, and I think that's a natural place and a good space for us to play in. We're also working more with our photographers. So, you know, sometimes we'll have just videographers, but we're also working with our still photographers, and they're doing video, and we're beginning to experiment more and more with 360 video, which is really interesting and really cool and hard to do. But we're working on that. So I think there's lots of experimentation to be done there.
Question in this row here? Yeah. Go ahead and give us your name, too.
Hi, my name is Steve, and I run the radio station on campus. You guys talked at the beginning about trying to get away from display ads. How do you view using your storytelling capabilities for native advertising, and is that something your platform or you're generally interested in doing as publishers?
Our video studio also does branded video, so we are using it there, and also we don't use our journalists to do branded content for text-based and still, but we do have people who do that on behalf of our advertisers. Not a big business yet, but we believe that that is one of those moves away from display, is branded content.
Same exact answer with us. We won't use our journalists for it, but there's a good opportunity to have our brand studio do that kind of work and make sure that it is, you know, properly labeled so readers understand what they're really coming to. But that does seem like a growth area as well.
Okay, we have a...
Stand up. Okay. Hi, my name is Matthew. Looking at this from another angle, what do you think will be the effect on the advertising industry when you finally figure out a business model? Does it go away? Does it evolve? Because I feel like you guys have a sort of symbiotic relationship. What happens then? Just looking at it from another angle.
Okay, so if the display advertising, think in terms of, there's some marketers in here, there's a funnel that people come through when they're going to purchase something. And at the top end of the funnel is where you find display advertising. There never was data like there is today to pick people up later in the funnel or for people to act differently and avoid the display piece of the puzzle. Now, I'm just speaking in broad terms here, not necessarily of any kind of opinion of McClatchy. Just what I'm seeing is that that particular piece of the funnel, that display piece, is being disrupted. And if that's the case, you have to pick your fight and where you're going to insert your business in the funnel. And we're trying to figure that out. So I'm not sure that it goes away or doesn't, but I know that it's stressed. We all know that that model is stressed because of what we see going on with the websites. When you go to the websites, they're really gummed up with display ads. That can't last. I hope it doesn't last, but just because I don't like it. Look, page load's a problem as a result of that, right? So it's got to be figured out. But I think your question around what happens at that moment is that money goes into other places. It doesn't disappear. It goes into branded content. It goes into subscriptions. It goes into sponsorships. It goes somewhere. And our trick is to really figure out in advance where do we want to place our bets, where that money is going to go. You know, promotional marketing is actually a larger business than display advertising. Promotional marketing is a larger business. So we are moving into that space with the bet that more money is going to pour into promotional marketing as a result of that shift. So that's what you have to figure out. I don't have an answer to your question, but I know that we play scenarios that say, what if that does dissipate, or it becomes just a commodity business that's run by programmatic. Programmatic is automated bidding on advertising, and it uses artificial intelligence to figure out what's the best place to place the ad, and it's automated, fully automated, and you don't necessarily need a sales rep for that. So I don't know the answer to your question, but I know that we think about it a lot, about what that top of the funnel, where does that money go?
We have a question here in the front.
Susan, you mentioned earlier how one of your strategies for building subscriptions for the 20s, like the 20 range, is creating content that millennials can really get behind and believe in. How do you make sure that what you're doing is ethical reporting and not just pandering to millennials?
I appreciate you asking that question, actually, because everything we have to do is accurate and ethically reported, because if we don't do that, we don't have anything to sell to any reader of any age at all, period. So at National Geographic, that's why we have this extensive bank of fact checkers who re-research the stories when they come in. It's why we force our photographers to give us every single image they take, so we can look at like the raw, we call them the raw files, to make sure that they haven't, in this age of Photoshop and all kinds of really elaborate ways you can change photos, to make sure those photos haven't been changed, and that readers are coming as close to seeing what was in the viewfinder of that photographer as possible. So I don't really think it's a question about millennials. I just think it's a question that is key to everything that we do.
Considering the high vitality of the current journalism job market and the multimedia of reporting, such as video, photography, print, data, automation, and even going onto social network sites, would you recommend specialization in the media or developing a wide knowledge of all of these medias?
If you look at where we're hiring right now, it's mostly specialty digital places. Video is a place where we're hiring. We certainly want to attenuate all our hires towards digital knowledge, not abandoning someone who is just a traditional journalist who doesn't really engage it, but it is part of our business, so we have to be wise about what we bring in the door for the future. But specialty is what we're looking for a lot. If you look at the jobs on our websites right now, it's digital salespeople, it's video people, it's social media people. It's not just a generalist per se. Although there are those jobs out there still, because we're still running a traditional business, but there is definitely an attenuation towards digital skill sets.
I'd be curious about what you guys think about that.
I think. It depends on the time frame we're talking about, right? To your point, if the time frame we're talking about is the next handful of years, it strikes me that a specialization and an optimization around a particular tool set for storytelling is key. If we're looking at 10 and 20, and I believe the proposed question is 100 years out, I think it's has to be less about the toolkit and more about the fundamentals of everything from gathering evidence, how to actually put together a cohesive set of ideas, how to judge those ideas, how to pivot when something challenges the ideas you're putting together. And then once you have that all together, how do you actually explain that and relate that and tell the story that you have on hand, regardless of medium. And I think there are patterns across all the available tool sets that adhere to a certain set of principles across all those verticals. And then the adaptability to bring new tool sets into the fold as they inevitably will come into the toolkit over time.
Hi. Well, actually, I have a couple of comments because I covered the digital revolution for NBC News in the 90s, and we were actually we did a series on the internet in 1993, where we were the very first broadcast network to put an email address on the air so people could respond. So the answer to your question about the Wall Street Journal and giving things away for free, the atmosphere of the internet was free, and the users of the internet fought like tooth and nail to keep anything but freedom on the internet. Yeah. And the Wall Street Journal got away with a paywall because their readers were people with business subscriptions who could afford to pay for the paywall. I'm sorry? Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to say that. But also, Chris Hendricks talking about finding other ways to pay for doing the journalism. I just wonder how you feel about the possibility of nonprofit journalism, of it finally being paid for in a. I mean, I think you're on the right track, because the whole time that I've known, everybody's been fighting this question of how are we going to pay for it. And
I am glad someone is doing that, because it is an experiment that needs to run. I will qualify it with this in saying that when it is a nonprofit and an individual is the most, the biggest benefactor or donator to that, it could present problems, but I'm not willing to write it off. I'm saying that's great, because that may be the solution ultimately, that it is owned by the communities or a nonprofit unto itself that allows journalism to survive. Because sponsorship, whatever it is, I wouldn't write that off. And I think you're seeing it, yeah, well, he's a different one than, that's different, but it is solo ownership, rich people. That is going on around the country today. And then there's also Philadelphia, which has now been thrown into a nonprofit. And that's the one that I think is to really watch, because we've seen the play before historically when individuals, rich people, own newspapers. We saw it here on the West Coast with the Hearsts and the McClatchys and lots of others. We've seen that history before. It's not to say it's going to repeat, but there are people who will take that and make it a mouthpiece and not use the tool in the way it was designed. Well, you can, and that's what Philadelphia is about. And I think that's right. There are, not to say all rich people are bad, because they're not, but it's just to be careful with it. But back to your question about it, I think the nonprofit model is something that we will see more of, especially as the stress of what's going on with the traditional model starts to play itself out in different markets.
If you notice Dave Curley walking out of here fast with his telephone, that's usually not a good sign. Something has happened in the world, it would be my guess. I wonder what it was. But one of the earlier questions was about other things beyond social media, and I meant to mention this earlier. This panel that you're seeing today is a space where the New York Times, the Atlantic Monthly, I would not be surprised that National Geographic, many publications are going to. It's the sense of these panel discussions, the LA Times, we call it the California conversation, going around, and basically it's journalism in the raw. It's asking the people who know the answers, the questions that'll get them, to expound on where things are going and on a variety of topics. So when I left the LA Times, that wasn't happening. When I went to UC, I had to learn how to put on some things like this. When I got back to the LA Times within just 6 years, it was, Pete, can you help us put on some of these California conversations, because we're adjusting our newsroom to learn how to do this stuff. They see it as another revenue stream. They see it as another touch to the community, and they see it as another way than flipping something onto the driveway. Dave, is the world good? Okay, good. So now, with the time, we're going to end with a lightning round from I've seen the future, as Leonard Cohen sang, but from the panelists. But I want to talk a bit, because when we had the interaction with the students, a lot of them were, like one of the questioners here said, what should I learn? Will there be a future? And it's a question that we asked in 1970, to be frank, but it's different now, because what we thought was changed then is a tiny thing, and now we're looking at mountains. My best answer was you know, if you learn what the core skills of journalism, how to think critically, be comfortable asking questions, and write coherently, no matter where all this stuff goes, other than the robot, yeah, I mean, you're going to be fine, right? But that's just me, and I'd be interested just to kick it through to the panel. You've got professors, and you've got students, and you've got department heads, and all sorts of folk, and alumni who are interested in helping. What should they be learning at Cal Poly or any journalism school right now to be ready for the world that you guys are squinting at?
From my vantage point, I can say there are a couple things in there. And so, as I mentioned, I went to school for journalism not once but twice, undergraduate and master's. Along the way on the side, I taught myself to code because there was at that point, there were no programs that were attempting to merge those things. But I think there's actually, from my vantage point, I think this is a wonderful time to be interested in news and information because you have this immense amount of reach afforded to you and this big playground to play with how you want to tell stories. The gateway to that, I do think if you're looking at what you're going to need, 3, 5, 10 years out, I do think is some sense of how potentially to build applications, to work with machines, to actually leverage the fact that you have apps on phones, that you are about to have VR experiences ad nauseum, and not necessarily rely on the platforms other people have built for you, but also look at ways to build your own versions of them. That's one thing. I think another thing is the power of data. I made a comment about this before, but I think that the world is increasingly being captured in data in a variety of different ways, and we are relying on that in a variety of different ways, but there is so much information on the table already. And part of journalism's role in the future, I do think, will be being good stewards of that data, making sure that that information is accurate, because we have to be, if we're going to start to rely on that kind of information, someone needs to be policing it and making sure that it's in a reasonable state and accurately reflects the world. And then, from there, I think there's so many avenues for storytelling on top of it. I could sort of come up with a number of examples. One that comes to mind is an old colleague of mine, John Templin, who used to work at Narrative Science with me, is actually now at BuzzFeed, and he's the one that broke the story in the last year about fixed matches in tennis. And he did it by looking at all of the data points in front of him. He went and got betting data, he went and got scores out of matches, and he started to look for trends across players. And he broke this story. It was sitting right in front of everybody. It was actually, I don't even think necessarily someone who's really into tennis would have been missing it. And there were rumblings about this, but he used data that was readily available to him to prove the point. And I think that getting familiar with the tools to do that and actually not being afraid of those tool sets and diving into it will open a whole bunch of doors for you now and going forward.
I would echo, what you're saying, and I think, everybody here keeps talking about Facebook and the power they have and how Facebook and Google together basically take 85% of all digital advertising dollars, and the reason is that they have concentrated relentlessly on user experience and creating something that people are addicted to or that is the best search results. And this relentless focus on users is kind of the representation of product thinking and how these companies think about building digital products that people love, like the news feed, that it always gives you something interesting and you can interact and you get feedback from people when you post something. And I think for media, we need to shift into this product-centered thinking. We need to think about going beyond just sharing things on social media, but could a media company build something as addicting as Facebook or something like Facebook, where we bring together people who care about the environment or care about San Luis Obispo, whatever it is? Can media companies build digital products beyond just putting up a list of headlines that you can click on a page or a list of headlines in an app? I think so that kind of product thinking is really important, and that brings together elements of design and software development and just talking to people about what they need and building applications that are relevant to them and are just as addictive as things like Facebook. So again, I think, we need to shift, what media products look like and not just think, oh, okay, it was a newspaper, we put a bunch of headlines on a page, now it's the web, we put a bunch of headlines on the page. I mean, that's just taking, like, that's people reading scripts on TV like they used to do in the first part of TV. So we need to move beyond to create true digital media experiences.
Whatever, and you're a senior at Cal Poly Journalism and you're about ready to take the walk and enter the job market, what do you need to know?
To be best off, I would say, I'll give you practical things. Google Analytics. Take some marketing classes before you get out. Understand the business side of social. Okay, so that you're not just wed to the journalistic side of it. I, as you didn't guess, I'm from the business side. I'm not a journalist, but I understand journalists through the lens of the people who taught me it, the Howard Weavers, the Gregory Favres of the world, who were really good journalists and taught me what was special about it. So I ask of you, is if you're going to be a journalist, turn around and go the other way. Find out how that business works, because the wall that used to exist is still there, but it's not as tall as it used to be and not as hard as it used to be. And it's not a betrayal of the craft to understand the business aspect of what you're doing and understand the readership aspect of what you're doing. So those are tools to learn. Learn Excel. Understand Excel, because if you're going to get into the data, you're going to run across it. So you can't run away from it. Google Analytics is there right now. I don't know if it'll be there forever. There's changes in the environment, but learn those tools, because those are the tools we want the journalists to understand today when they come in, so they can analyze things, data, so they can look at readership trends and understand the readership trends. And then on the other side, if you're going to do social, you might as well understand how Facebook makes money. What do they do? What are the tools that a marketer sees when your content goes through there, so you can see how it works?
I certainly agree that there's no, that when I was coming up as a journalist, you kind of weren't even allowed to know about the business side. Nobody wanted you to know about all that messy stuff, and that was none of your business, and you were considered bad if you did know something about it. You know, that ignorance did not serve us well. I think journalists really do need to understand the business of journalism that they're in. But they also need to understand the not just the business side of journalism. You really got to understand the journalism side of journalism. You know, the age-old skills of understanding what a story is and how to connect with somebody and how to create content that people can feel passionately about, and content that is ethical and balanced and fair. And those are going to be skills that you need whatever platform you're going to work on. And to that, I would add that the two skills I see in the very best journalists are curiosity, endless, boundless curiosity, and resiliency. Because in fact, this is a complicated business. It is an ever-changing business. But if you're resilient and optimistic and keep pushing for it, it's like the best business in the whole wide world to be in.
For those who were at the last Hayes Symposium, I apologize, because I'm going to repeat something. Pete talked about his dinosaur scales. And I use this analogy of the cavemen showing up at a new cave, and somebody had to go to the back of the cave with a torch and see what was back there and come back and tell everybody else. And that was the first journalist, and there have been many since that continue to go and find information. And information is power. It's power to our audience to make decisions about their lives. I told some students earlier, yes, this is why I fell in love with this business, because I am extremely curious. I want to know a little bit about everything. And if you have that curiosity, then learn how to tell a story. Learn how to write it. Everything else we're talking about, I agree on the data issue. I've been using data for a long time. There's a whole lot more out there right now. Nate Silver's figured out a way to take data and crunch it and tell us different stories. And that's fantastic. But it's learning how to write and tell the story and provide that information to your audience that helps them make a decision that makes their lives better, to me, which is journalism is what journalism is about and what makes it a noble profession.
Your grandpa had in freshman journalism would talk about credibility, and you just reminded me. It's somewhat related, but he said if you lie once, you're a liar, and in the journalistic context. And so to the question about integrity, or that Susan answered well, I mean, whether we're writing on the walls of caves or in some chat room or in some invention of the future, they still got to believe you. And so that, I think, is one of the ethical tools of journalism, or I think probably going to become more important than in the future, because as you can see in this current presidential election, when the news gets bad, we're the first to be blamed for it. And so we have to be able to stand up, as the New York Times did, say, no, we're okay. I want to ask one more question. And then I want to, you know, the poem I began with is more famous for its last line than the passage I read to you, and that's how the world ends with a bang and not a whimper. And so we want to end with a bang. And we're going to go to each panelist to talk a little bit about the future. But I just had one question, because you struck on it, and I mentioned it before the Q&A. Is there a sense of urgency? The things that you say you're working and experimenting with models, you're trying to figure things out. Is there a clock ticking?
Yes, the clock is ticking. The biggest levers that we look at that we don't control, unfortunately, is this is from the traditional, the print side of the business, is we don't control how fast the advertisers are leaving it. We don't control that. And we also don't control how fast the print readers are leaving, whether it's through Mother Nature or whether it's through they move to the digital. So the time is coming, and we know it is. So the sense of urgency for the transformation is every day. It's palpable. We feel it, and we have to move that way with urgency. It's not a game because, again, journalism's in the crosshairs. So it is a deep sense of urgency and need to get to tomorrow faster. We talk about if we think it's 2020, how do we move it to 2018? What can we do to make it, if we understand where it is or try to say where it is, let's talk about bringing it in closer to get there faster. Because those two that we don't control, they could pull any moment, and it'd be devastating.
First, we've got some time. We didn't do speeches at the beginning because we want to get the conversation rolling. But we've got people from very different backgrounds and very different bodies of experience and whatnot. So just, you don't have to be right, but throw your brain forward, a generation? What's this, where is this thing we call journalism, which is an old-fashioned word when you think about it, where's it going to be? And so when they're halfway to my age and operating in the students and operating in the profession, what will they be doing? What will their world be like? And you can be as fantastic or as grounded as you want to be, but let's just, throw it on the wall about what it's going to look like in the future. We'll just go down the row, and then we'll wrap it up. Thanks.
So I think one thing that we're already seeing the beginning edge of, and I think will continue, is that the story unit as we have known it will continue to blur. That the idea that there are discrete touch points in stones put as across a set of stories that thread together over days as something evolves, but they are discrete units. We have these atomic units. I think that moves to a place where it is more of a stream, and people can dip into it, and what we'll be on the hook for is building applications at all scales, whether it be hyper-personal information that's either because it's hyper-local or tied to their networks in some way, or whether it is what's going on the other side of the world. I think we will see ourselves in some ways. I don't think the story necessarily as a unit goes away entirely, but I do see us moving to a place where people can dip their toes in the water at will and find out things in a much more ad hoc way than they have historically.
I think I see the role of journalists as being much more of moderators and community organizers, and kind of a blurring of the line between the journalist and the people formerly known as the audience, or I would say community basically, or public, if you just want to have it be a more kind of neutral word. We already obviously do see this somewhat with social media, but I think it's going to be pushed much further, and I see things breaking down more in really niche topics and niche ways. Like there is a mass media type play, and some people will be able to succeed like that if it's, you know, perhaps CNN or the Washington Post or New York Times. But I think it's kind of tough to be in the middle. So I see other people going much more like niche and narrow topics, and people finding things they're really passionate about and rallying around that. Who decides what's news? I mean, I think we all. I think we all decide what's news. I guess that there is. I mean, I still think there is a role for the journalist as a moderator to kind of help guide people, but I think it is kind of something that will be more bottom up as well, where the public will help also figure out what the news actually is and what's important to them.
I am a dinosaur. We talk about niche. I was doing some genealogy work and was looking at a great-great-grandfather in Chicago. And I went back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I believe there were 11 newspapers in Chicago at the time. There was the labor paper, there was the business paper, there was, you know, the far right, the far left. It was all there. And I'm not saying we can't go to the same place in a digital world, but I'm not sure that it's actually anything new. I think the journalists still, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, will go and see something, will talk to somebody, will get some facts, and tell a story about what they learned. How that's delivered, I have no idea. But I think somebody is still going to perform that role, just like the caveman did in telling everybody it's safe in the back of the cave, we can live here. I disagree that we'll be more moderators. I think we will still continue to filter and edit for an audience, which I'm not sure has the time to decide whether a story is important to them or not. Although we do see the way some things get clicked on out on the internet, that something that actually is popular and gets a lot of clicks may really have no meaning or import into somebody's lives. Then it's a question of, is it entertainment or is it journalism? Is it information or is it titillation? So I don't know that our role is going to change dramatically. I just think the way you do it and how you deliver it are going to change.
I really don't know the answer to this at all. But I do certainly hope that there will be value that remains in the editing function, because we do have an ability to essentially aggregate content for people, to put it in modern terms, so they don't have to waste all of their time going everywhere trying to find out stuff that they either want to know or ought to know. And they're going to pick and choose among the people who perform those functions for them. And I think often they will pick and choose around subjects that they're passionate about. So whether that's the environment or climate change or their community, they're going to pick and choose around those kinds of subjects. I also think the great middle could go away. So it will either be like the Tiffany's of journalism that remain and the Walmarts of journalism, but that great middle, it's the same trouble that department stores have. They're neither this nor that, and I think that middle ground, and I fear it is large regional metros. I think that's a very, very troubled, difficult model.
Can I add one thing, because that's exactly what I talk to people about. It's brand. It's a brand that people trust. We talked about the New York Times, the Washington Post, ABC News, CNN, NBC, whatever. If the people trust the brand to provide them with information that they've believed to be true and is true, that's what people will continue to come to.
So I'll paint a picture that is, go ahead, yeah.
And that's judgment. And it's always, I've always thought that why people really buy newspapers, the New York Times or the LA Times or the Washington Post or whatever, it's because they're buying someone's judgment. They don't have time to figure out this is more important than that. The Washington Post, New York Times, Twitter, love, because they did those stories. Those, they didn't have to. The other papers might have not run those stories, but one, they chose to run them, and two, they were trusted for their judgment. And I think anything that removes the the branding of your judgment, of your ability to tell the really important from the really entertaining. Not that entertaining has its place, but not, in the same box maybe. So as a fellow optimist in the future, dinosaur to dinosaur, I think not only will they be going into the cave, but I think when they come back from the cave and say it's safe, they're going to have to be believed that there isn't a snaggy tooth, whatchamacallit, at the other end of the cave waiting for them. So I think judgment will be something that is looked to. And I think you even see that now with some of the younger hires and newspapers trying to police their Twitter feeds and protect from, you might get more hits if you do it this way, but you're also threatening your journalistic credibility, judgment, that brand. So anyway, now having the first word, you now get the last word. It's all.
I have to go 100 years out because then we're done with the press. There's no printed product anymore 100 years out. So now we're back to what's left, journalism. I'm optimistic about it because I think that the craft itself, the integrity that's around it, the skill set that's around it, becomes more valuable in a world where everybody can blog and think they're a journalist. Everybody can take a photo and think they're a photojournalist. That it needs that expertise on top of it. So I think that where you wind up with these strong brands that are historically they're still committed to that, is you have these virtual networks of expertise that work together for the collective good of democracy. And what does that mean? Where does it play out today? We see it in the Panama Papers, where a collective of expertise worked together and played off each other. Not we're competitors. We all work for the good cause. And I think when you remove all of the chatter around the business model and all that kind of stuff and look at journalism, you say, it's going to get better. It has to get better because, it needs to get better and it better get better. But it does because that expertise, everybody wants to be a journalist. Now everybody can publish. So who's putting it together and telling the right story? Who can be trusted? Right? We see it playing out today, and we never before have the tools about getting the information to sift through it and find the story. 10 years ago, all these women who are coming forth about Donald Trump, that would have never happened because there was no way to get that story 10, 15, 20 years. You'd never find all those people that fast in real time for somebody to sift through it, look through it, validate it, talk to people, because the network allows that to happen. But you still need people up top going, let me look at this from the collective truth standpoint. We are now in an age where we're moving closer to the objective truth than we ever have before. There's subjective truth, there's collective truth, and there's objective truth. Nobody wants subjective truth. We see that today all over the place, just being hauled out, Facebook posting stories and trending that aren't even true. That's subjective crap. Objective truth is what you want. Collective truth is probably where you can get, but how can you move that closer to the objective truth? And I think if we really focus on that question, the tools that are at us, and continue the craft as it is, and really make it special, and protect ourselves from the vagaries of whatever else is out there, I think it's a good picture. I really do. I don't know what the business model will be, though. But I'm trying to figure that out with a bunch of really smart people on the business side.
Thank you. It's been, let's give the panel a... It was my role to play the face of journalism past, or maybe a little bit still journalism present. But I think it's important that we work through from where we've come from to where we're going. And I wish we had discussions like this in every newsroom and not in silos, because there's, like I said, this isn't rocket science. It's more difficult than rocket science. And I think it's been a great discussion. I'm now going to call back up Kevin Riggs for some concluding remarks, and then we're going to hear from Mary.
Channeling Charles Dickens, that's good. Well, this has been a very insightful panel discussion. To paraphrase the Washington Post editor Ben Bradley in All the President's Men, as he talked to his reporters Woodward and Bernstein, don't worry about it, the stakes aren't that high, we're just talking about the future of the First Amendment and the fate of the Republic. But there is a lot at stake with a healthy journalism these days. It goes beyond digital points and clicks and dollars and cents. It does speak to the health of our form of government. So at this point, I want to thank the panel. I want to thank Pete King for, again, a very insightful discussion. Let's put our hands together for a thank you. Special thanks also to Sage Publishing, our Jim Hayes Symposium sponsor, and of course a thanks to all of the sponsors for making the events possible for this celebration of, yes, believe it or not, 100 years of delivering the news. I'm going to call Mary Glick up to the podium now. She's the Journalism Department Chair. I'm going to let her wrap things up before we head outside for the reception. Mary?
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks to everybody. You know, I started my morning today with a few maybe students who are still in the room at the Journalism Innovation Challenge, where we divided into teams to put together new ways to tackle journalism with an idea for creating services and products that revolved around the audience needs, the emerging technologies, and the goals of journalism. And we got some amazing, amazing ideas coming out of our students, many of whom are freshmen. It was truly an inspiring morning. And then through the beautiful conversations and careers with alumni and our students networking, which every time I walked into that portion of the library was just a buzz with great conversations taking place. And our spectacular innovation showcase, which I think was blowing a few people's minds, and I want to hand it to our faculty for putting that together in a way that was engaging and really showed the whole array of tools that are available today to journalists as we're moving into this next 100-year cycle. And the beautiful, spectacular exhibit that the library put together on the history of the student press at Cal Poly. It's truly inspiring to see the innovations one generation after the other grappling with the challenges of the day and being so cognizant of being true to journalism and being cognizant of the needs of the audience and wanting to do things in new and innovative and challenging ways and creative ways. And then to this beautiful presentation by Susan Goldberg today, who inspired us with the beautiful work of National Geographic and how they are taking that more than 100-year-old brand into the next century, truly inspiring. And the beautiful panel today with some great ideas revolving around what's the struggle, what are the challenges of today, and how are we going to take this into the future. So I think I couldn't really end it on any better note than to say thank you. Thank you all. This has been a labor of love for a lot of us in the department putting on today's program. And our wonderful students who were pitching in at every step along the way, helping us plan this for a year and a half. And I think that this was first day of a 2-day of celebration. I think was very successful. I hope you'll agree. We are going to end tonight with food, which is always the best way to end an evening. And then there's also a reunion downtown tonight at Slow Brew for alumni who are in town. So everybody's welcome to join us there, students as well. Tomorrow we will have an open house of the student media. So come in and tour the newsroom, tour the studios, see KCPR. And a Hearst Castle tour, a free tour for people who are in town. So if you haven't registered, I think there may be some seats left on that bus. So there is still a way to do that if you're interested in going on that tour tomorrow afternoon through our website, mustangnews.net/anniversary. And tomorrow night we will have a gala celebration, the Spotlight Gala and Hall of Fame dinner, where we will hear from Bed Bradley Jr., who was part of the Spotlight team at the Boston Globe. And we will induct the first 4 members of a brand new Mustang Media Hall of Fame. And we're really excited about that ceremony as well, with lots of surprises in store. So thank you all. It's been a great day. I'm ready for a glass of wine. I don't know about you. And thanks to Peter and Kevin for this wonderful show today.